Welcome! Guys, today we're talking about how you move block with flyers, and more importantly, how you counter this very cheeky move. So, watch the video and find out what on earth I'm talking about. Welcome guys, it's Andy here from D6 Evolution, and today we are talking about flyer movement blocking, and more importantly, how do you counter this very cheeky move? So, anyone who's new to the channel, we're all about 40k tactics and tournament tips. So, flyers in 40k at the moment, they're incredibly hard to interact with. Particularly the Eldar flyers with the multiple minuses to hit can be really hard to remove from the table. They've got an incredible range with their movement, and of course, things in the movement phase, although they can fly, these flyers, you can't actually move underneath them. So if you're running multiple flyers in a list, such as these Eldar flyers here, you can effectively box a combat army into its own deployment zone, while the rest of your army, such as these Dark Reapers over here, just shoot you to death. So it's an incredibly effective technique which I've seen a lot of people use. So what we're going to talk about today is, number one, how you can effectively move block someone with flyers, and secondly, we're going to talk about some of the ways you can counter this. So now the table is all set up, what have we got here? So the Eldar player is being rather cheeky, and he has move blocked this Imperial Knight. Now I am very aware that this Imperial Knight has a giant flamer here, but for this video we're going to assume that he is a close combat knight and that he wants to run up the board and he wants to punch this Eldar gun line in the face, and obviously he's surrounded by a bunch of troops here as well. So the Eldar player here, he's using his planes here to just move block this Imperial Knight. Now Imperial Knights, they've got a 4-inch base at its narrowest, so it's just making sure that these bases here are at least 4 inches apart, plus an inch on either side, because you can't go within an inch of a model. So 6 inches apart is what you need to be. So these three flyers here are effectively limiting this Imperial Knight from moving more than an inch. And the important thing here, guys, is that the movement phase happens before the shooting phase. So it doesn't matter if one of these flyers gets shot to death, because this Imperial Knight has already moved this phase, it can't move again. So there's no way around, so this Imperial Knight's just going to stay in its own deployment zone. So this is an incredibly effective technique against, number one, against Imperial Knights, and also against all assault armies. Obviously, if you're trying to move block infantry, guys, all you need to do is you need to narrow the gap between your flyers, and obviously you can't block off the whole table unless you've got like sort of 4 or 5 flyers. So effectively here you'd have a 3-inch gap so that a model can't go within an inch either side here. So movement blocking, it's fairly simple. Now we're going to talk about how you counter movement blocking, because this is the fun part of the video, and I'll be back in a minute and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. We're back after we set up the board. So the first thing I'd say is a proper movement block. There's probably not going to be a whole heap you can do about it. But the key here, guys, is to try and find the chinks in your opponent's armour, because he does actually lose a lot by trying to move block you. And if someone's been a little bit too keen, they've been a little bit careless, you can gain a lot by countering this move. So the things to think about when someone move blocks you is, what have they lost from this? So first of all, they've lost their bonuses from the HQ over here, so they're not going to be re-rolling any hits. They've lost their bonuses, from being Eldar and being -1 to hit from being Altiok from more than 12 inches away, so they're easier to hit in themselves now. They're in range from Smite, from my Spiker here. So again, also very good. The range of heroic intervention if my knight here was a character. We're going to get back to that in a minute, because that's really important. And the next thing we're going to talk about is flyers, and they're actually particularly flyers without hob are incredibly susceptible to actually just being move blocked themselves. And if flyers can't move at least 20 inches, they just blow up. So the first thing to check when a player does this to you is, can you block out the flyer's movement so that it's just going to auto-explode next turn? So if we look at this flyer over here, this one here, it can't move on this side of the board. I've measured it out. It can't actually move 20 inches that way, and it can't move 20 inches here. The only place it can actually move is if you see these dice here. It can move in that tiny corner here, and it can see where these 2 purple dice here. That's the only place it can actually move. And this flyer in the corner over here, it's the same sort of deal. It can't move this way up here. It can move into the corner over here, and it can move this way as here. So I'm just going to reposition my troops. And guys, Imperial Guard troops are actually really, really quick with the move. And I'm just going to show you how I can reposition my troops to auto-explode 2 of these flyers. So I've repositioned my Imperial Guard and they're all at the back of the board here. So angle here, I have effectively blocked out anywhere this fly here and this fly here can move. And the way to identify which flyers are at risk, essentially any flyer which is near the edge of the board is really susceptible to this because they really limit where they can actually move to. So this flyer in my turn will auto-explode. And this fly here will also auto-explode. Now obviously guys, this does not work on flyers which can hover. So this Imperial Knight here is going to heroically intervene. And guys, anyone who's been watching the channel for a while, you're going to know that there's loads of tricks surrounding heroic intervention. And if you haven't seen it already, watch our heroic interventions tricks video, because you will learn a lot. So this Imperial Knight here, although that you can't technically charge a flyer unless you've got a fly keyword, heroic intervention isn't actually a charge move. So you can heroically intervene in, and then you can pile in. You can't attack because you haven't got the fly keyword, but you can still pile in and consolidate, and that's pretty obvious when you read through the FAQs. Even if you're not near a unit, you can still pile it. You've still got your pile in and consolidate moves. The only caveat is this Imperial Knight can't actually attack, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're going to pile in, we're going to consolidate, and we're going to be up where this purple dice here is here. So in our movement phase, we're completely past the move block, because when you're piling in and consolidating, you can go within an inch of things, guys. So in our movement phase, we can move up and say hello to the Eldar gun line here and completely negate his move block. Other things to think about, guys, obviously with heroic intervention, is look at which guys in your armies actually have the fly keyword. If you've got the obvious little shield captain or slam captain running around, these guys can obviously heroically intervene and actually attack these guys, Custodians can swooping dive in as well, obviously. They can blow them up in your opponent's fight phase, and then there's no flyers to movement block. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how you can actually avoid being move blocked in the first place. So if you're an all assault army and you come across a player with sort of 4 or 5 flyers, you know they're going to try and do this. So if you've got scouts, such as here, an Eldar flyer base is 3.5 inches, and so if you move these scouts less than 5.5 inches in front of your deploy where you put your Imperial Knight, and then another set 5.5 inches in front, it means that a flyer can't actually fit in between these. So the flyers are back at the middle board, so they can't actually move block your Imperial Knight in the first place. So that's a really good thing. If you can see it coming, think about it. If you know it's going to happen, put your scouts out forwards. Yes, you may lose your scouts, but you're stopping yourself being trapped in your own deployment zone. So guys, that's my thoughts for flyer move blocking. I'm not saying it's a bad move. I'm thinking it's a really good move, and actually if you use it at the right time, it's incredibly effective, and you can completely stop a assault army from moving out of their own deployment zone, which will probably win you the game. Though if it does happen to you, just have a think about it. Think if there's any chinks in your in the armour of your opponent's move, because a lot of the times they've left themselves open, like I say, particularly for Eldar flyers. If they can't hover, just make sure you can't auto-explode them by moving in the only place they've still got to move, particularly if they're at the edges of the board, because they really leave themselves open for that. Look at the heroic intervention rules. They are dirty. Unless they get changed in the future, there's so many little moves you can do there, and obviously they leave themselves open for smites and other things. So anyway, let us know what you think of the video. If you've got any suggestions for future content or for problems you're encountering, let me know. I'll see if I can come up with a video for them. Anyway guys, till the next video, take care, and subscribe to the channel if you're loving it. Bye.